It's one of the reasons why the Bio One franchisees never collect payment at the time of service. Very important that we walk our talk of helping first, because the money's there. We wouldn't be in business if it wasn't. But there's a time and a place for it. And that's why helping first and business second is a very strong and passionate motto that we have that we live by every day.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews.
Hi and welcome back to the My Future Business Show. My name is Rick Nusky. I am your host. I'm also the luckiest person alive today, I would say, because I get to spend some time with some incredibly talented people who are changing the world literally with the things that they are doing. And today's guest is no different. I'm on the line with the wonderful Nick-antony Zamucen.
All right. Hey, thanks, Rick. How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you very much for asking. I like to say, Nick, that I have 2 feet and a heartbeat. I can't really complain. Now, I know that you are currently on vacation. Where are you at the moment?
Currently, my feet are planted solid in Scottsdale, Arizona. My wife is, she loves the heat, and I love being married. So we have a place in Scottsdale.
There's a match made in heaven, that's for sure. And as I mentioned, I went through Death Valley, and like I said, it's the hottest place I've ever experienced. One-way ticket for me, straight through, never come back.
Well, I'll tell you, it's a balmy 113 today here in Scottsdale, and I've spent my time by the pool and indoors. You just don't go out when it's that warm.
Well, look, Nick, and in professional settings, it's Nick-antony. For everybody who wants some context here, I'm actually just going to share a little bit about you, if you don't mind, Nick. For everybody who's on the call today, Nick is a serial entrepreneur. He's a business strategist. He's a 4-time published author. He's an award winner. And we're going to be talking about what it's like to start your own business, the reason why franchising may not be good for you, along with many other topics on today's call, Nick. And it's going to be a wonderful journey. But before we do that, you're talking about being on vacation. I know you're incredibly busy, but what are your personal hobbies? What are some of the things that you like to do?
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, I grew up in California, so I was a big surfer for a long time. So if it has to do with
hunting the beach,
the beach, I'm pretty much there. And surfing and spending time with the family. Again, as I said, I like to be married, so any chance I can get to spend time and spend money on my wife, that's always a great hobby. She really enjoys it. And again, it's a good thing. I mean, I have 3 young kids under 10. And, with me, hobbies have come few and far between just because it's work in the family. You got to kind of prioritize what's important in life.
I remember having a run-in with a Huntington Beach pier while surfing one time. I won't forget that very quickly, I can assure you. She gets pretty sizable there, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does. It does. And it's one of these things where if you've been doing it your life and know where things are at, you're okay. I've seen plenty of people, unfortunately, like yourself,
catch
the wrong end of the pier.
Oh, yeah. It won. Let's just put it that way. Now, I'd love to ask you, if we could, do you have any favorite movies? Are you a bit of a movie buff? Do you like to take some time out for that sort of thing?
You know what I do. I'm more of what they would call nowadays is the old classics. I mean, everything from, if it's got Jack Nicholson in it, I'm there. I'm the typical Jack Nicholson, Al Pacino, Harvey Keitel kind of guy. Yeah. So anything. I can say a recent one that I really enjoyed was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh yes, yes.
I just thought it was a great movie, great kind of throwback to 60s and 70s making of movies and characters. So I enjoyed that one. So I thought that was pretty darn good.
Thank you for sharing, Nick. Now, I wonder, early on in your career, it may have been the other way around, but what's more important today, business or family?
Oh, family always. Business comes and goes. I mean, you can be on top of the world one day, and I don't care if it's financially or you just make a deal and close a deal that you're excited about, or business you can give or take, because you wouldn't do the business. In my opinion, humble opinion, you just don't do the business. The family, you do the business for the family. It's years ago before I had a family, I'd probably switch gears and would have said, "Oh no, business, it's all business." But family, I can tell you, kind of humbles a man and centers a man, and I can tell you, brings a sense of peace. So business tends to be a little bit more chaotic. So I like to focus on family and keep business where it's at, and that's usually in the office.
Now, I have a couple of kids under 10, so I know you're busy for sure and certain. What are some of the things you guys like to do? Do you go together places and things like that?
Oh yeah. I do a lot of coaching. So I've coached my son in 4 years of football now and 2 years of soccer.
Excellent.
So I have two little girls. So I have a 9-year-old boy and two little girls that are 6 and 4. Wow. And for me, it's they have this. If it's ice cream or candy, the girls are all about it. If it's sports, my son wants to do it. So any chance I can get, I take it.
Now, I wonder, going back a few years in your own childhood, did you have any pets, and do you have one that you fondly remember if you did?
Yeah, I had a little. It's the funny story is my mom told me it was going to be a Labrador, and we got it, and because I always wanted a lab. It turned out to be I think they're called Shih Tzus, but
that's just a little bit different.
About 60 pounds lighter than a lab, and his name was Slick. I don't quite know how my mom, I'm not sure if I'd like to think that she didn't know it wasn't going to be a lab, that she was told it was going to be a lab, or I don't know though. For all I know, she knew it was going to be a small dog. And since then I've kind of been a small dog guy. So
yeah, wow.
I to this day I have a Yorkie and a Chihuahua now. So I kind of fell in love with small dogs. I've always I thought I wanted a big dog when I was a kid and never got one, and still haven't got one.
Well, we used to at one stage have a couple of Maltese Shih Tzus, brother and sister, and they are the ultimate lap dogs, aren't they?
They are. They love to snuggle, man. I tell
you. Now, you talked about your mum a little earlier, and I always like to see how life and the people around you have influenced you growing up. I wonder who was around you early on, in your formative years, let's call them, that helped to shape you into the man that you've become today.
Well, I would say probably most, first and foremost, probably would have been my grandfather. I'm actually named after Nick. He was Nick Joseph. I'm Nick-antony. But my grandfather, he was the type of guy that you knew where you stood with him. I mean, there was no pulling punches. He told you how it was, but in the same time, he was he's probably one of the kindest men you'd ever meet, and generous. And he took care of everybody, and he was known around town as Big Nick. And when I was born and running around with him, he passed when I was 13. But when I was running around with him, they'd say, "Hey, there's Big Nick," and "Hey, there's a shadow little Nick." So yeah, I would say my grandfather was probably the biggest influence in my life that I've had as of today.
Now, you wouldn't have achieved much of the success which you have with Bio One Inc. and Best Options Restoration, which we'll talk about at length shortly, without having mentors, without having a good education. How much emphasis do you put on ongoing learning and being around the right people?
Well, I put a lot on self-awareness. I think you really have to know who you are and what your strengths are. One of the reasons why, Best Option Restoration, which we just call BOR, and Bio One have done so well, besides just dumb luck at times. But I tend to be pretty good at figuring out, again, what I'm not good at, and hiring the right people, listening to the right people. Not, I think one mistake that entrepreneurs make far too often is that they hold on to what they have, this perceived control. They need to make all the decisions. They really want to hold on to their baby, for lack of a better word, and they lose sight of to grow. You have to kind of let go, and you got to get people that can do things better and frankly faster than you can, because we all have our skill sets. Mine, I might be a talker while the other person might be great at numbers. I can tell you, I'm not a CFO for a reason. I think things make sense financially, and then realize well, that's why they don't make sense. But as soon as they just explain to me the tax side. So, I think again, know who you are and not listening to naysayers, because I can tell you when I started BioOne, there were 2 other companies before me that had tried to franchise the company or their companies, and they failed miserably. And everyone kept telling me in the industry, oh, it'll never work. If so-and-so couldn't do it, so-and-so couldn't do it, then you certainly can't do it. And I just kind of had to sit back and, again, being self-aware and kind of full of myself, said, well, just watch me. And that's, and that's kind of the underdog story. The Rocky plot is something I've always kind of modeled my life off after. So I don't take no very, very well.
Now, there's 101 ways we could go with the conversation. I just wanted to, I guess, follow on from that statement about letting go. Not only is this a mindset component, but there's also possibly, and hopefully you can clarify for me and the audience, systems. Did you have to have people around you that followed systems, created systems? How did you structure your business, and when was it that you were comfortable that you had enough to let go?
Well, yeah, I mean, yes and no. To a lot of those questions, I did not have a lot of systems put into play in the very beginning. It was a lot of, just off the cuff, making decisions, thinking that you're making the right, or hoping you're making the right decisions.
Yeah.
I can say I eventually hired people. When I realized in 2000, I think it was 2016, I was gone 37 weeks out of the year, traveling, opening up franchises, trying to support, being everything to everyone.
Yep.
I realized that just wasn't sustainable. And so I decided I would hire a management team to take over BioOne and run it and grow it. While, what I figured out was I loved the hunt. I love the creative side. I like to build. What I don't like to do is manage.
Yep.
And what I figured out after about, I think when I stepped away from BioOne, I think there was 45 franchises. And to me, I just said, I'm not the manager type. I want to be fair and I want to be nice to everybody, and I try to do what's right by them. But sometimes, people tend to, and I hate saying it this way, but I don't know what else to say. People tend to take advantage of things.
Oh, yeah.
And
yep.
Especially when it's just, it's like, hey, you can make that decision. Let's bend the rules. And in franchising, you can't really bend the rules because you got 44 other people that want the same kind of softness that you're giving to somebody. And then, so I decided I have to hire people that are basically by the book, that are good at what they do, that are still hold a pragmatic approach on how to run a company, but don't have that personal relationship, if you will, that I do with each and every one, so they could really take the business to the next level where it needed to go. So I hired the team. I hired the team and created something else.
Now, you strike me as someone who looks after themselves. What does a daily routine look like? Do you exercise? What do you do with yourself every day?
I can tell you in the morning, I'm a 4 o'clock in the morning person. I don't sleep much. I get about 3 to 4 hours of sleep every night. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big sleeper. Never have been. I'll go to bed about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm pretty religiously up between 4 and 4:30. I'll work out in the morning for a few hours, whether it's a weight routine or some jogging. And then by 6 o'clock, I can tell you my day is pretty structured. From 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., I am working. I am working, and my wife does great about, letting me work during the week. From 6:01 to 9 o'clock p.m., I can tell you I am with the family.
Yep.
And then from 9 o'clock on to usually about midnight or 1 o'clock, I'm working again in front of the computer. So I've found a way to, we tend to, people, I'll say it this way. I've realized in my life that people tend to always say they don't have enough time, but yet we tend to make time for things that are important enough. So for me, I have plenty of time to work and plenty of time to be with my family. I just need to schedule it. So my weekends are just family. Saturdays are with the wife. Sundays are with the kids and the wife. But the work week is 6 to 6, and then 9 to 9 or 6 to 9. It's just their time.
I love that. I love that structure.
Yeah, you got to schedule it. I mean, it's important.
Comes back to that question of family or business first, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Now, I wonder, you know, on the surface of it, you hear about overnight successes, and that's a pile of BS, I'd say. I wonder, in reality, what have you learned from failure in your journey?
Oh, I've learned more knots than I have twos. You know, I mean, I would say, you know, to try to be here was my problem, and my problem was very clear and it's very out there. I wanted to be perfect. You know, I have this thing about doing things wrong and not being right. So my big thing was, you know, everything's perfect at all times, at all costs, make it perfect. The challenge with that is it tends to delay things and because things aren't perfect, and you can't always have the perfect answer. Sometimes there is no perfect answer. It's just the better of the two evils, and I had a hard time accepting that. And so I've learned that over time with failure to embrace it, because not looking at failure as a punishment, but more on the lines of a teacher, and it's taught me quite a bit in the sense of being honest with people that sometimes, man, I just don't have the answer. I just don't. I'll get it for you, but I may not have it off the top of my head. And to me, when somebody came to me with a challenge or an issue or a question, and I didn't have the answer, God, it was like a spelling bee. If I couldn't spell it right, I'm out, you know? And so I just wanted to always have the right answer at the right time, which isn't practical in business in no sense of the imagination. So again, it goes back to hiring the right people that can give you the right answers and guide you in the right direction. I mean, I tell people, look, I offer you advice, you make decisions. And so it's for me, learning failure taught me how to humbly say that I don't know. And it's taken some years, I promise you that.
And it's not as bad as it seems to say I don't know, is it?
Or it's not. It you know, people don't look at you like, what do you mean? I mean, you know, I had this thing built up in my head to say I don't know, or I didn't have the right answer. I had this thing built up that people were just going to lose faith in me, and you know, and they don't. I mean, I mean, there's just no way you know everything.
You're human. I'm loving this call, I have to say, and I know that the My Future Business audience are small to medium-sized business owners. They're startups, and they're not only looking for a bit of education, they're looking for inspiration as to what to do. And somewhere in the write-up, I read that one of your greatest strengths is assisting people's success through your own experiences. So from that, I wonder, how important is a success mindset?
Well, you know, success mindset is I love the phrase, but it doesn't happen every day. I mean, I wish I could wake up every day and say, yes, this is, I mean, I'm
winning.
Yeah. You know, some days you get your butt kicked and it's okay. You know, I can say, you know, as a franchise owner, one of the things, or franchisor to franchisees, I say, look, you have to understand that you're going to get your teeth kicked in. On a daily basis, and that is okay, because you're kind of earning your chops. And you know, having a success mindset is one thing. Having a mindset, in my opinion, that just doesn't give up is another. And because there are days I go to bed, Rick, I don't feel successful, and you know, I feel like, and whether it's professional or personal, I mean, you have kids too. You have those days where you feel, you sit there, you put the kids to bed, and you sit there and you say, why did I have to raise my voice at that point? Why am I such a bad dad? You know, you go through all these things, and you do so with business. You know, you look at you have a franchisee or somebody coming to you for help, and you're not in the right state of mind, and you might say something like, you know, I told you this 10 times. I mean, why can't you do it? And it's the wrong way. And so you end up calling the next day and apologizing. And you know, so I would say, again, good success. I mean, success, you always want in the forefront. I think you just have to, sometimes you just, as a business owner, you got to give yourself a break.
Absolutely. Yeah, this comes back to being that human and somewhat vulnerable. I wonder, are you a natural risk taker or are you risk averse, and it doesn't matter in business?
I think it does matter in business, in my opinion, and no, I'm a risk taker. I wish I was more risk averse at times, and not because they're failures, but I see things that, I love the hunt. I love to hear that somebody couldn't do it and I could. So whether it's an investment or a new business turnaround, or turning around a business, I can tell you one of the franchise organizations that I had, I bought a franchisor that had 16 locations that was going out of business because he was failing. Mm-hmm. And I just simply looked at the business and went, it's because you're just not making these moves. And I took over the franchise and then sold it quickly, 2 years later, 24 months later, for a handsome profit because I wasn't, he was too risk averse and he wouldn't do things that he needed to do because it was going to cost him a few pennies, where, I'm a risk taker by nature. I skydive, I swim with sharks. I think as an entrepreneur, there's got to be a sense of it. There's got to be a sense of, never say die attitude, and just knowing that, if you die today, you're blessed enough to get up tomorrow and try it again.
It's funny you should say that, because they say that you're living the most when you're closest to death. And I remember feeling that when I jumped out of a perfectly good airplane. And look, I know that people will be loving this call, and I really appreciate you opening up. And I wonder if we could just touch on one more question before we shift gears and look at all of your books momentarily. I wonder, when you feel fear, given what I've just said, in a business context, and you're scared of something, you're scared of making a decision, does that ever happen? And if so, how do people manage that? How do they get through it?
I think people handle fear differently. I think it's a lot of the way your almost DNA's made up. Yeah. When I feel fear, I end up having a check-in moment, a self-check-in moment of what is it I'm fearing? Am I fearing a failure? Am I fearing embarrassment? So I do a check-in. What am I fearing about this? Obviously in business, I'm not fearing a personal harm. So if it's not personal harm, then it's mental. So what is it that I'm fearing? And, is it the letdown? Is it the loss of money? Is it just the form of loss in general? So I try to really acutely pinpoint what is my fear and address it from that point. Because normally, in my opinion, I find fear being, for the most part, not rational. It's an emotion. And if you can pull yourself away from it, the emotional side really, I think to be an entrepreneur, one of the best pieces of advice I could give is you better become very good at compartmentalizing. And, be fearful about that later, because the decision needs to be made now. And, to compartmentalize and really be able to make pragmatic decisions at the right time quickly, I think helps, be an entrepreneur. I think it helps you in your whole entrepreneur journey.
Yeah. This is wonderful. I know there are people on this call thinking, wow, there are methods, there are techniques that I can adopt. There's different mindsets that I can think about. Hey, maybe I need to look after my business better and myself better. Now, with all this, I'd love to now ask you, how you are so busy. How is it that you ended up writing 4 books?
Lack of sleep.
Of course, yes.
Well, I can tell you, I've always had a creative side, and a couple of the books, whether it's Maverick Franchise or Bits of Wisdom, these were books that, Bits of Wisdom specifically, was a book that I wrote in under 30 days. And it was compiled of a bunch of questions that I kept being asked, whether it was when I walked off stage, or whether it was from franchises, or just general, hey, what do you think? Do you have a minute? And what I was finding was patterns of consistent questions from young entrepreneurs. And I wanted Bits of Wisdom to be just that, just a few nuggets of my thought, small little essays of the way I felt at any given point about certain questions. And so it's almost a compelling feeling. I felt like every one of those books, I felt like I had to write. And because my mind kept stirring, it just kept going. And I can tell you the last book, My Family Business, is my first shot at fiction. I had a couple buddies of mine that were saying, man, you come from an interesting family, and you've had some interesting experiences in your life, and your dad and your grandparents. I'd love to. You should really write a book on that. So what I did is I took a lot of liberty with reality, and kind of twisted a reality/fiction book, stories that I had heard when I was a kid growing up, and kind of filled them in, and so it turned into be again my first shot at fiction, and I'm currently, actually, I can tell you'll be the first to know, I'm currently on my 5th book right now.
Excellent.
And it should be coming out. I'm hoping it's going to come out by the end of the year. It's just another one where I felt like bits of wisdom, while they were great little nuggets of information and could really tell a story. I feel like the next one, I'm just kind of calling it The Keys. The Keys kind of give a little bit more detailed answers on specific topics like entrepreneurs and like failure, like what success really means, and so it's an ongoing thing that I just can't. My brain seems to think I have something to say, and when I do, I don't shut up.
I love it. Thank you for sharing. This is wonderful, Cole. I wonder, was it? It seems to me that it was natural for you to write. In terms of nonfiction, was the process the same? And how did you feel at the end of it? And did you self-publish?
I self-published bits of wisdom. I ended up self-publishing the nonfiction or the fiction book as well, because I was with publishers, and they just changed my story. Everything that I wrote, I sent it into the publishing company. They'd send it back with all these red marks and lines saying, well, what if we did this? And what if we did this? I'm like, well, that's not how the story goes. So I ended up spending a year battling back and forth with the publishing company about how the story should look, and what my version of the story was. And I decided, you know what, I'm yanking it back. I'll do it myself. And so, my wife had read the transcripts or the manuscript before it went to press. And she said, in her very quaint way, I understand. She said, I can understand and read what was you and what was them.
Oh,
she said, it's just a different writing style.
Chalk and cheese.
Yeah. It just kind of went different a little bit. And so I wanted to really make it my own and pull it back. So, but as far as, I'm sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent.
No, absolutely not. I'm loving it.
The process, no, the process is totally different for fiction than it is. With me, when I write, again, whether it's Maverick Franchise or Bits of Wisdom, it was a very, Flip It was about, obviously flipping properties, but that was before I even got into franchising. But Bits of Wisdom and Maverick Franchise, those were very much almost essays of, again, questions that I've been asked, things that I've been thinking about, things that I'm tired of repeating. So let me put it out on a book. And so every franchise that comes aboard gets both of those books. Every franchise, whether it's buy, own, or board, they always get those books, because I feel it answers a lot of questions in time that they will have.
That's really smart.
Themselves or the company. So
it's kind of like an onboarding sequence, isn't it? Really?
It is. I tell them, I say, look, when you're looking for nighttime reading because you can't go to sleep, you go ahead and pull up one of these books.
Well, look, I know that there is absolutely a plethora of different conversations, different discussion topics that we could cover today. We are entering the pointy end of the call. Now, I'd love to know quickly, why did you get into the fields that you did with Bio One and Best Option Restoration? They're really interesting fields.
Well, I can tell you with Bio One, it was a labor of love. Crime scene cleaning is not something I ever thought I was going to do.
I've never heard of it.
Most people had. It's not dinner table conversation. I thought I would be a professional athlete, and it turned a corner on me. I was sitting in a church, and the pastor had stood up. This was 20 some odd years, 22 years ago now. I was sitting in a church. Pastor had stood up and said that a man had taken his life in the audience and he did not see his wife, and wanted to know if some of us would go see how she was doing. And so we went, and this was Sunday afternoon. We went to church. We went after church. We went over to her house, me and a group of guys and the pastor, and we walked in the door, and some women were already there from the church, and they were sitting on the couch with her. Well, when I walked through that front door, she kind of locked eyes with me, and she said, "They said I had to clean it myself." And I had no idea what she was talking about. And she pointed to the back door, which ended up being her bedroom door. And I opened the door and quickly saw everything in life that you probably shouldn't see.
Yeah.
And I closed the door real fast, and I quickly realized what she was talking about. Well, yeah. I walked over to the couch and told some of the ladies on the couch, "Could you take her to lunch? Me and the guys will stay back here, and we'll clean this for her.
We'll deal with it."
Yes. So we did, and we did 1,000 things wrong. I mean, we did, you name it, we did it wrong. And we were sitting around a couple of days later, me and those same guys, talking about life and our spirituality. And somebody brought up, I wish I could say it was me, but it wasn't. Mm-hmm. Somebody said, "What do you think happens when people commit suicide?" And I mean, the police just tell people to clean it themselves. Is there a business here that we're not seeing? And a light bulb went off in my head. And I created at that time, my first crime scene cleaning company. And, at Bio1, we have a company motto that's just called help first, business second. And I'm very, very, very big on that. The reason why is that's how the company started. We weren't trying to make money. We were just trying to help a lady in her greatest time of need. She had no one else to turn to. So, it's one of the reasons why the Bio1 franchisees never collect payment at the time of service. They don't take money from people. They don't collect from anybody. If a child's hurt or a first responder, we collect zero money from that. Yeah. It's very important that we walk our talk of helping first, because the money's there. We wouldn't be in business if it wasn't.
Of course.
But there's a time and a place for it. And that's why helping first and business second is a very, very strong and passionate motto that we have, that we try to live by every day. And
that's excellent. That is excellent, because I look at our motto, and it's underneath the My Future Business logo. It's helpful people helping people. Yeah. So I love what you're doing. I mean, it's not a great topic at the best of times, but there is a business there, and you've made the right decisions, and you've got some great business acumen about you. You're a loving father. You've got balance in your life. There's lots to be learnt from this call today. Now, I'd love to know, if people want to buy your books, or if they want to learn more about you and the business Bio1 and Best Options Restorations, or BOR, where are people going to find you?
As far as the book goes, or the books, I tell people the easiest and best way is always Amazon. I almost hate pushing, Bezos' company, but he's got enough. But he seems to corner the market on almost everything. So
no, I reckon he's short. He's a bit short.
It's pretty simple to type in, Nick-antony Zamucen in Amazon, and I'm going to pop up. As far as Bio1, it's literally just the www.bio1inc.com, and BOR is just borestoration.com. They can look at it. They can look at it and read it all they want. If they're interested in talking, I'd be more than happy to chat with anybody.
Fantastic. And also, Nick-antony, there's also, you've got nick-antonyzamucen.net. Can I share that with people?
Sure. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
All right. Well, look, anybody and everybody who's on today's call, if you haven't taken something away from this, I don't think you were listening. There's been some great nuggets of gold, some wonderful wisdom shared on this call today. And no matter where you see this call, you'll see the links back to all of the relevant links that we've just spoken about. And Nick, thank you so very much for joining me on the My Future Business Show today.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.